Hey everybody, Kyle Goth here from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Goat Film Reviews YouTube channel. I've got my quick thoughts, quick reaction to the new Transformers film. Hi Goku. New Transformers film, Transformers Rise of the Beast. This is directed by Steven Caple Jr., who is probably most well known for directing Creed 2 a couple of years ago. We see Anthony Ramos and Dominique Fishback on their first time in the Transformers franchise. The film is a prequel to the 2007 Transformers, I think, as well as being a sequel to Bumblebee. So it's set in 1994, and it follows Anthony Ramos when he is down and out and needs some cash, tries to steal a car. Turns out the car is an Autobot. Mirage, voiced actually quite wonderfully by Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson silently has shown up in a ton of movies this movie season, which is just insane. I think there's 3 movies in theaters right now that Pete Davidson has a small, occasionally unrecognizable role in. So I was kind of confused, like, what's I have no issue with Pete Davidson, but like, what is with the Pete Davidson cameo voice work that's happening? Well, it turns out Pete Davidson's really good in the movie, and this movie itself is quite a good Transformers movie. It has some significant issues, but I will say this: other than Bumblebee, this is a great Transformers movie. This is probably my second favorite after Bumblebee. More in line with the original film. I think closer to the original Michael Bay film. But one thing this movie does is it has everything that Michael Bay did wrong with Transformers. This movie does a little bit better. I'm not saying it does it well or perfect, but it does it better. So, I mean, things like the needless comedy. And there's some comedy in the film that doesn't work 100%, but you're not inundated with bad, really bad comedy like most of the Michael Bay films had. The action is better in this film. It's closer again to Bumblebee because you know all the characters. Sorry, my cats are trying to get stuff. You know all the characters, and the nice thing about it is I feel like this is probably one of the best Transformers Autobots character movies I've seen in a long time. And what I mean by that is, in the first Transformers movie, yeah, you know Bumblebee a little bit, you know Optimus Prime a little bit, but you don't really know most of the other Autobots or Decepticons, and when the action scenes happen, it's just a bunch of CG throwing CGs at CGs. And I think there were some of the Transformers films that Bay did that I think actually did a lot better at that. I think Age of Extinction does a pretty good job of at least visually making the characters distinct, so that works a little bit better. But this one, I think, is one of the best representations of all the Autobots have characters. And you can tell who each one of them is when you see them in the movie. I think the Decepticons, most of them have more character than they normally would have, or at least a visual distinction, so that when they're fighting, you know which ones are the good guys and which ones are the bad guys. Same can be said about the Maximals, I think they are. I didn't watch the Beast Wars stuff, so I'm sorry, guys, but the Maximals, they have visual distinction, and unfortunately, there's 4 of them in the movie. Only 2 of them really get characters, but you know those 2 characters quite well. What's the ape one? Optimus Primal, who I think is voiced by Ron Perlman. He's great. In fact, a lot of what you would normally consider stunt voice casting, a lot of it's really on like point in this movie. Is that Michelle Yeoh who voices Aerotrax or whatever the bird one is? I thought that was Michelle Yeoh. It sounded like her voice. Yeah, and then Pete Davidson. Of course, Peter Cullen's always great. I gotta figure out who did. Oh, I heard that Peter Dinklage does one of the main bad guys. I didn't catch it in the movie, but I might have to go back and revisit. There's a lot of good voice work here for these characters. And they also, one of the other things this film does a little bit better than the other ones is that it gives the human characters a little bit something more interesting to do. Now, again, not as strong as Bumblebee, but much better than Shia LaBeouf just yelling, or, you know, Mark Wahlberg saying hi to your mother for you. Like, this is a better distinct, that characters have something to do. They're on the journey with the Transformers to do what they're going to do, which I really appreciated. They also don't give them too much to do because it is a Transformers movie. The Transformers then are given characters. So a lot of this stuff is better done in the film. Now, granted, let's talk about the issues. There are some serious betrayals of movie logic in the film. And what I mean by that, if you don't know what movie logic is we have a logic and a certain physics to our world, to our real life distinction. There's a logic to our lives. There are set rules in place about how this world is set up. And when a film creates movie logic, it therefore has to adhere to it. And there's a couple things in this film that contradict themselves a little bit, don't make sense within the larger narrative. Also contradict events from other Transformers movies. There's events in this film that specifically contradict some of the Bay films in a pretty big way, where it leads me to wonder, are they even related to those films? Which, again, I don't need an answer to it because each film can stand on its own, but when the designs look the same, I kind of want to know if it's related to those films or not. I want to know if they're part of the same world. And the film doesn't really give me that. There's also the issue of the film that essentially this is just like pretty much all the other Transformers sequels. There's a MacGuffin that our main characters are looking for that's going to give them ability to defeat the bad guy. And it is done. It reminded me a lot of the Matrix of Leadership, which I think the thing is from Revenge of the Fallen. It reminded me of that a lot. So in effect, the film feels almost like a remake of Revenge of the Fallen. A much better film than Revenge of the Fallen, but still kind of hitting those same beats. And that was disappointing because one thing that the original Transformers had for it was that at least it didn't have anything else it copied other movies, but it didn't have any other Transformers movies to copy. And then with Bumblebee, it was very much a take on that classic boy and his dog. With Haley Steinfeld and Bumblebee being the dog. Like, that resonated. That was a very time-honored tradition that was molded into a Transformers movie. This one just kind of hits a lot of the same beats. So that's disappointing, but I think the performers are pretty great. Though not given a lot to do, this really is the Transformers who are the stars of the movie, and that's great. So, right now, there's some mixed aspects to the film, but I am leaning positive towards it. I had fun watching it. What can I say? I think that the visual noise, the visual CG throwing stuff was more palatable, more understandable. But even though they did miss a few of those, one thing Michael Bay can do really well is he can craft a pretty large-scale action sequence. And when he's able to avoid the visual noise of it all, he can make some really good ones. I really think about that Transformers like snake thing in the third movie that's like wrapping itself around the building. There's no sequence like that in the movie, but there's some pretty cool action set pieces that Steven Caple Jr. is able to do. So this is a very mixed bag, but I think I'm leaning more positive than negative, and it's definitely better than probably all of the Michael Bay films, though still never reaching the heights of Bumblebee. So let me know what you thought about Transformers Rise of the Beast down in the comment section below. While you're down there, give me your favorite Transformers movie, or rank the 7 that we've got. Heck, you can throw the 80s one in there if you want. And while you're down there, please like and subscribe. There are 2 free things you can do that help support the channel immensely, and you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. Also, go ahead and check out goatfilmreviews.com for my many written reviews. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Almighty Goatman. You can also check out my show Kyle and Nick on Film that I co-host with Nick Plotchuk from the St. Paul Filmcast. We have new episodes every single week. All those links are down in the description, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.